Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live Q&A. I have Mye De Leon here. Welcome, Mye.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Great.
Um, I say welcome, but I wanted to say good morning, and then I couldn't say good morning because it's not morning for you. It's like what time is it? 11 p.m. or
It's
something?
11 p.m. here.
It's so crazy. So for anybody watching who doesn't know Mye is in Singapore, and I'm not. I'm obviously not in Singapore. So we're like on totally different time zones, and it was kind of funny to try and coordinate this. But thank you for being here. I'm so glad you're willing to film at 11 p.m. Oh, you've got the
Yeah.
cool.
I'm putting it on mute too.
Yeah, perfect. So, if you're watching live, tell us where you're tuning in from because we're clearly international today. So, before we get started, Mike, can you just give us a little rundown of who you are, what you do, and all that kind of stuff?
Okay, sure. My name is Mye De Leon, and I'm a lettering artist, author of the book Mastering Hand Lettering, also an educator. So I teach hand lettering workshops. And since July of this year, I have also taught other creative business owners to start their own creative businesses. But my lettering journey started when I was 10 years old in grade school. So back then, I was just creating lettering for poster making contests in school, and then all of my work will be displayed inside the classroom or around the school. And in high school, the funny thing is, my classroom is just the opposite of the guidance office, and I would just hang out there, help with the bulletin board and design their bulletin board. And then one day my mother told me that you might not be able to finish high school. And there I was in the guidance room, and I was decorating the bulletin board, and I was talking to the guidance counselor, and I told my story, and she said, "You've been helping us a lot around here, so maybe I could help you in return." And what she did was a month after she surprised me with a scholarship from high school to college.
Wow.
So that was all because I was helping around decorating instead of, hanging out with my peers. I don't know. I don't know what I was doing when I was 13, but I was 13 years old. So at an early age, I have already started, when you really wanted something, because at the time I feared that I will be left behind and that my classmates are going to be graduating high school and I'm not. And uh, it scared me. So I found a way to at least, I was just telling someone and asking her for maybe a little help, but I did not really expected that she will be helping me. And it turned out that, yeah, so she gave me a scholarship for college. And same thing, when I was in college, I was working with my uncle. He has a silk screen printing business. So whenever there are elections, he's gonna be dragging me out on the streets and painting murals. Back then, I was so ashamed to do that because as a college student, a lady, and I'll be seen outside. But now murals are a thing, and it's funny because back then it's so. I don't know. I was ashamed to do it on the streets, but now I would probably be elated if I will be invited to do one of those again.
Yeah.
And yes, and um, but sometime in college I have to pursue my studies and somehow forget about lettering because I have grades to maintain because I was on the university president scholar, so I have grades to maintain and I have to focus on studying. So I stopped lettering for a while. Not a while. It took me 15 years. So I stopped for 15 years. And then I discovered scrapbooking when I was already working for um, corporate. I was working for corporate. And then from scrapbooking, I learned designing pattern design. So I was a graphic designer and I did a lot of surface patterns and scrapbook designs. And then in 2012, I gave birth to Alphonse, and that was the time that I stopped doing scrapbook designing for a while because my son needed a lot of attention. And during that time, I rediscovered hand lettering. The funny thing is, when I was doing scrapbooking, lettering is already in my mind, but it was like I'm earning from scrapbooking, and if I introduced hand lettering, I don't know if I will be. I was more of on the income. I was more concerned about the income that I was earning back at the time, and I was like, if I do hand lettering, there's no money in it. That was my impression, and so I did not pursue hand lettering, and that was 2009. If I only knew now what I know, because at the time, Jessica Hish, John Contino, and Mary Kate McDevitt are already making names in the industry, and I did not even know about that. Had I done it a little earlier, probably I was one of those few people who started hand lettering early, but that wasn't my journey. My hand lettering, my hand lettering came to me as a profession in 2014 when I rediscovered it, simply because I wanted to do something for myself, and that something is just to get back into the creative groove, because I was starting to at least to lose myself at the time. My son's diagnosis was a lot to take in during that time. So if a lot of people doesn't know, but he was born with Down syndrome. My husband was telling me to breathe.
Oh.
Okay, so he is born with Down syndrome, and during that time, it was kind of challenging. So having a child with special needs, having a child is difficult. Having a child with special needs is even more challenging. So I have to go to therapies, doctor's appointments, and I have to bring him to a lot of medical tests, lab tests, and things like everything. He has a lot of medical complications, and he had to go to an open heart surgery at 6 weeks old. And after that, I took care of him. And because he has a lot of needs, I felt like I'm starting to lose myself during that time. It was kind of lonely. Even though I am with my family that time, it felt like I was alone, and it was devastating. So I wanted to do something that will really make me genuinely happy. And that time I thought of lettering, not because of the money, or probably if it would ever bring me money. I never thought about that. It was purely I wanted to do something that will bring me joy, that would really make me happy and away from all of those negative emotions that were slowly eating me up inside. That was my concern back then, because I know that despite all of the challenges that I was facing, I'm still a mother and I still have 2 daughters to take care of. And I wanted to get out of that nasty, ill feeling that I have. So that's what I did. And I started with alphabet. That's why the free course that I was giving in my website is hand lettering, starting with the alphabet. Because I started from there. I learned from there, and that was the very thing that I shared. So I would letter one letter in multiple variations every day, and then I would post it on Instagram. In 2014, I have about 2,400 followers, and they kind of liked it. So every day I was sharing letters, and after letters I shared words and quotes, and I still have some of the few quotes that I did back then. So this was, I think, the second quote that I did.
Which is still looks so amazing.
But even then, I already have a love for designing and decorating letters. And then this was the third. These are already digitized version, and you can see that my W is still way off. I don't know about the thicks and thins back then, but somehow it just worked out, and people loved it. And then 6 months after, I got a job from Minilu Kids in the USA. Karina Gardner, the CEO, asked me to create a coloring book, an alphabet coloring book to be precise, for children. And I was surprised. I didn't know that I could really earn from doing hand lettering. And I was like, sure. And I did that for 4 months. The book was just this thin, but the work was like this thick because I have to hand letter 10 variations of the alphabet each and then illustrate images and objects that are related to the letters. And I did that for 4 months because back then I don't have any help around around the house. I don't have any, Singapore, they allow you to hire foreign domestic helpers. But before, I don't have one to take care of the children and help me around the house. So it was just me and Alphonse. And I did the work during the 2 to 4 hour window that I have in a day when Alphonse is taking a nap, because he likes to sleep during the day for 2 to 4 hours. So if it's just 2 hours, that's just my work time. If it's 4 hours, lucky me. So that's how I managed to start my hand lettering business. And that is why I have been advocating that it's not really a matter of whether you have time or not. You really make time for what matters to you. And if it is something important, to you, you will find the time to do it. So if people are always complaining like, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to learn a new technique, I don't have time to learn a new skill, and I was like, you won't have time because you're not dedicating time to do it. But that's why I firmly believe that if only you would give your time to something you would really want to learn, you are going to make it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, like, I mean, your story is crazy. I never knew any of that stuff. That's amazing. So cool. It's so cool that you started when you were that young. Like, I think you're the only person I know in the lettering world who started when they were that young. But no, it's so true what you're saying about if you find something that you genuinely want to do. And you even mentioned it. It wasn't about the money for you at that point. It was because you genuinely wanted to do it. And now look what grew from that. So I love that you're encouraging people to just find what they love and do it for that and make time for it.
Yes, because nothing will really happen if you don't make time for anything. So
yeah,
just do it.
Yeah,
don't be afraid to do it. Just do it.
So awesome. So
Yes.
So we're gonna get a free lesson from you, which is awesome too. I think people are excited for that. So if you guys watching haven't noticed that little poster behind Mye right there, the black and white one with all the different alphabet letters and stuff, those are all kind of embellished in different ways and all decorated in different ways. So Mye is like a master at doing this. And it just seems like she never runs out of ideas for how to embellish different letters, which is so cool. And she's going to show us exactly how she does that in a bunch of different ways. So maybe I'll just get myself off the screen and let you go for it, Mye, if you're ready to do that.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Let me just get the phone and...
Oh, one thing I did want to mention, and you can leave your phone like that, but for those of you who are watching, you'll notice that Mye has already written out the words that she wants to embellish, which is great because I didn't know she was going to write the Happy Ever Crafter, and I love it so much. But you guys might feel like you are not ready, like you don't know how to actually build that composition yet or how to build the letters. And if you're at that point and you feel like you need help with that, Mye has a whole like crazy awesome PDF on her website. It's free, and she walks you through how to make every single letter of the alphabet in block letters like that. And I mean, it's the most helpful thing in the world, and I told her that she shouldn't be giving it away for free, but she is. So if you guys want to grab that, I'm going to put her website up on the screen, and it's just right on the homepage of her website. You can sign up and get that. So I'll let you do that, but then when you're ready, you should come back and do this and check out how to actually embellish it. So I'm going to take my face off here, Mye, and I'll let you go for it.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of embellishing the letters, I like to embellish my letters, not just because I wanted to design them. To me, it always serves a purpose. So
Sorry to interrupt you, but
yes,
can you flip the other way? Like flip it. I think your phone is vertical right now, but if you put it horizontal, you know what I mean?
let me fix that. We'll see. Yeah, I just realized that. Okay. Okay. Hang on. This, this is difficult.
I know.
It is.
There we go.
How,
That way.
okay,
Yeah,
better.
that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Okay. Yeah. That's why it looks weird on the computer. Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay. So there. I have already prepared this one for you, and I hope you liked it.
I love it.
Yes. Thank you. And so there, as I was saying, when I embellish my letters, it always has a purpose. I don't just embellish my letters for the sake of embellishing. To me, it always depends on the composition, what the composition calls for, what is the theme, what is the the goal for that entire composition. And with that, I think of the different embellishments like something that will, make it look more cohesive and it goes well together, not just because it's aesthetically pleasing, but it's also serving its purpose. Okay? So I am going to embellish the letters differently on every letter. Hopefully I have enough up in my sleeve to do everything. So for the letter H, I am going to start with a very simple inline. So for inline with big letters like this, I want to add, so instead of an inline that is just a single line like that, I would do something like this one. So if you see my table is moving a lot, so excuse if it's okay. So I always get questions about how I embellished, like I have all black letters and then there's empty space inside. So this is how I do those. And of course, rotate. I always love rotating my papers. I'm very weak at lettering with horizontal lines like that. I always go with the vertical. It depends on how you'd want to do it, but basically just find your strength. And to me, writing vertical lines is my kind of weakness. So you'll never see me hand letter unless it's a tutorial because the camera has to catch it like that. But in real life, I always do it vertically. Okay, so this is an example of an inline. It's thicker than typical inlines because most inlines are just very, very thin. But I have a very wide letter. So I wanted to have these thick inlines, okay? And when I'm done with that, that's the time that I will shade the letter from the outside. I wanted to use the ink for this one, but the fine liner, but I won't be able to erase it anymore, so I chickened out. Sorry about that. But I hope you can still see the the pencil.
So when you're working, like if you were doing this for a real project outside of just pretty
Mm-hmm.
artwork for me, you would probably sketch in those lines in pencil and then fill it in with your ink, or would you do it in
Yes.
pencil first and then go over it?
I would do it in pencil and then I would trace it in a tracing paper. And then when I have to submit it to a client, this will be digitized. So I'm not going to ink these parts of the letter, but I'm going to ink the outlines of the letter H like that. And then these lines inside, that's what I'm going to ink. And then I can just turn it white in the software like Illustrator.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't even do that black fill. You would fill that
Ye-
in on digital.
Yes.
Okay.
This is mostly I do this mostly for just the black and white, the traditional black and white work that I do, mostly for Instagram and for exhibits. Okay. So there. Because I always get questions about this one. It's like every time that I would post a letter with this single line inside, there will be questions like, how did I do it? So this is how.
Someone said this is very soothing to watch.
It is. Basically, when I'm working with my lettering pieces, I'm watching either Netflix or my old-time favorite, Criminal Minds. I have like 12 seasons stored in my computer. I, I have watched it like over and over. Not really watching it. It's more like my companion whenever I'm working with my hand lettering, because I don't want to overthink what composition will I have to do, or sometimes it's freeing when you're just listening to something that's not even related to your hand lettering, and sometimes I get idea. I don't know, it's weird. I still have some of my lettering pieces associated with some Criminal Minds episodes.
That's funny.
That is the weirdest thing. Okay, so for this one, we're going to try a different inline. So I'm going to try a dotted inline for the letter A. So dotted inlines, to me, this one kind of implies more simpler design, but you wanted to give emphasis to the letter. So if you want to give emphasis to a word or to highlight a word, but you want it simpler, you can do this style. But if you want more fun and more engaging letters, I'd like to use the Marquee style. So if I want a Marquee style, the circles inside the letters, the dots are going to be a little bigger than typical dots. Okay, and I always get these inner parts where there are intersections, because I like mine, aligned consistently. So I'll get those areas first.
That's so smart. Every time I do that, I always start on the left and work my way to the right, but then I never end up with the right number of circles. So they end up not centered properly.
Yeah, that's always a problem. So I have learned to do that. And sometimes I still have to erase, it's not always perfect, but you get the idea. It's easier and it's more, yep, you can do it better. So there. And then this one, it's going to take a lot of time if we darken the letter. So for now, we'll just darken the dots and pretend these are lights. Okay. So there. This is a dotted inline, more like a marquee, because typically dotted inlines are really smaller, like that. But this one invokes fun and happiness, and somehow more lively, especially when you add colors to it. And if you turn it into a neon design, it's going to be even livelier. Okay, and what else? So this one, I'll try to add something easier. So I like to cut my letters in half. So this design is, the design is going up like that. So this one's going to be curving a little bit. Okay. Because my happy is like that.
See, that kind of thing would have never crossed my mind. I would have just drawn a straight line.
Yeah. The thing with having this design is this became my new baseline. And then this is my new cap height. Typically, I would follow the same for the mean line or the X height, but with these letter H and A, they are already following the path of the baseline, so it is more appropriate to follow the baseline like that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Okay, so this is why I'm curving the bottom part of the letter P. And with this, I'll shade the bottom part. If I'm taking so long, just let me know. This
No,
is why
everybody
this
likes
is
watching this.
this is why I didn't do the letters live because it's going to take us forever. Okay, so this one. And once I'm done, I can either add lines or dots, but I won't add dots because I already have that with my letter A, and having two dots in a row is not gonna look good if I'm decorating it with different styles. So for this, I think I'm gonna go with lines like that. Okay. So what does this design do for me? For me, this serves a little more neutral, but you wanted to accentuate the letters. And sometimes it highlights the letter as well, but in a more kind of not simple, not complicated. It's the middle ground. But most of the time, when I use a style like this, like I have a heavily decorated piece at the top, and I want my bottom part of the composition to be heavier, because when you have compositions, typically the bottom part should always look heavier. And what I would do is these styles I would use in my lettering just to invoke that these parts should be heavy. You know, giving the eye that illusion that this is heavier, even though you have a lot of styles going on at the top. Okay, so this serves a purpose as well. Okay, so what's next? I like to combine my inlines and lines as well. So with here, we can try maybe 3 dots like that. And then I'll add a single line.
Mai, do you mind moving your paper down just like 2 inches? Yeah, there we go.
Sorry.
Nope, perfect.
Okay. Okay. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So there. I added 3 dots and then a single line at the top. And you see, this is the part where I have to rotate the paper. Still looks good. Can you still see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Because like I said, I'm worst at horizontal lines, so I always go vertical. And even with curves, I don't curve to the right. I always curve to the left. So I have learned and I have appreciated and embraced my quirks. And you should do that too. You should not force yourself just because another letter told you this is the best way to do things. It's not always like that for everybody. So just embrace your own quirks and work with it, and you're gonna be fine. So for me, I don't do horizontals and right curves. I always do left curves and then verticals.
I love that because I always have people asking me if they should change the position of their hand for certain strokes. And I always tell them if it's comfortable for you, then yes. Like if you can make it work that way, then yes. I don't see why there should be any rule for how you have to hold your hand and how you have to draw in uncomfortable
Yes,
ways.
true, and it's different for everybody. You know, you can't simply just follow someone else's rule because it suits them. You need to find what's comfortable for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try and find something else. I think for serifs, I have already. So this is some of my lettering work that I did when I have, when I'm already looking for inspiration. This one, maybe we can try this one. But I already did that. Let's find something else. You know how I managed to have a lot of lettering styles? I always draw the alphabet every year. I have a collection of alphabets, and I will just draw them in different styles. Like I don't know if you have seen them, but it's in my Instagram. But I have kind of like a couple of letters decorated in different ways. And that's how I have learned to create different lettering pieces as well.
I think it's
So,
interesting that, I mean, and I like seeing that you don't have them all like always in your brain. Sometimes you have to go back and look at your own work and
mm,
think of styles. Like they're not
mm,
all just like built into your brain right away.
no, they're just way too many to remember.
Yeah.
So I always make it a point to just go back with to my strokes. So for this one, let's try and do I'm going, oops. This one's not followed that one. Still following this curve over here. And then I'm going to curve it here. Oops. So I always erase a lot. Okay, so what I will do is I will have this same lines inside the letter. Okay.
Can I get you to move your paper down again?
I'm
There we
sorry.
go. Perfect.
There. And then the top and bottom part, I'm going to shade it. So I'm stuttering. I'm so sorry. It's very difficult to hand letter and then talk at the same time. Okay. So this one, these are my favorite designs for serifs, sans serifs, I mean. Okay. You can also shade them the way you want to. I just do this because it's easier for me. And I like the look of all angular shade like that. It's just that. Nothing really special or fancy about it. Okay, so our letter Y is done. Right. Let me just sharpen this.
Do you have the Stedler sharpener right there? I would love it if you did that in the video, just because I think a lot of people don't know what those sharpeners do.
Oh, okay. So these, I have my Stedler Mars Technico, the lead holder, and I have the lead here. And the sharpeners are two versions. You can sharpen it from this one. I'm gonna use the other one. You can just put it. You can remove this cap and then put the lead inside and then just sharpen it like that. But I don't like it because it only sharpens very small portion of the lead. This one sharpens way more longer. Let me just get that.
So I had to use these pencils when I was in university because we did hand drafting, like for architectural plans. And I remember using those pencils in front of people who weren't in that world and they just had no idea what those sharpeners did. So I thought that would be interesting to show people.
Yep, so this is the lead pointer. It's what we use to sharpen the leads of the lead holders. Okay. So there. Now you've seen different inlines for sans serif. These are my typical go-to designs for these particular letter styles, simply because despite the letter is simple and I do not want to over accentuate the letters with decorations that doesn't really suit it. Like this letter, the crafter is, if you notice, these are more ornate. These are bifurcated serifs and they're highly decorated. And if you'll see the decorations that I will add to this one, it's not going to match the simplicity that this design implies. That's why I keep the sans serif to a minimal as much as possible. So even with embellishments, they can still be highlighted, but not too much. Okay. So are there any questions so far?
No, everyone's just saying they're enjoying it. Someone asked about digitizing, but I think that we should touch on that at the end.
Okay, all right. So I'll move to the word crafter. I'm going to again design it differently for every letter. For this one, I have bifurcated serif for the word, so we can try different pointed styles in terms of decorating. So the first one that I like to do would be, I'm going to give this one decoration like that. So the bottom part is going to be darker. Again, if you want your word or your letters to look heavier, this is one thing, the one embellishing that you can do to your word. Okay, so for this one, you can leave it as A's, or you can add a few dots above it just to balance the letter out. So for this particular style, I don't want to over decorate the letter. Typically, I will just have 3 or 4 depending on the size of the letter.
I always really love that one. I love that style.
This one is your
Yeah.
favorite? Yeah. Yes, I love accentuating bifurcated. So I have another style for the letter R, and it's going to be, this is one of my favorites. Everything is my favorite. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to have a diamond, because if you look at this part, this is pointed and the diamond is kind of matching that particular spur in here. This is a spur, and I just want to match the diamond inside. And then these, I'm going to have a single line.
Okay, I lied. I always love this one too.
All right, so this one at the bottom is nice. And of course, these will have their own inlines as well. But if you'll notice, the inlines are not going to pass through that portion because this is very narrow. So we're just going to leave it at the wider part of the letter. There. And of course, the leg. So you're going to know about the terms that I'm talking about this if you download the free course that I have. This part of the letter R is the leg. But basically, you have this in calligraphy as well, right? Sorry, I'm just cleaning it up. For the letter A, what to do next? I'll try the same thing for the letter A, but I'm going to work and use this part of the letter, because this one is, we can connect it to this crossbar. Okay. And have this part of the letter A darker. Similar, almost similar to this one. Nobody's breathing. We're all like watching here.
Everybody is just meditating watching you do this.
Okay, so here, this is going to be darker on this part. But when I have styles like this, I want to do this particular style simply because it's pretty to look at. Look, I have one finished artwork here. That is this one.
Oh, that's so nice.
So yeah. So whenever I have this particular design, I'd like to use it if the opportunity is there. Okay, so for this one, maybe we'll try another. I'll try more dots similar to the other one, just to kind of break the lines, dots, lines, and dots. Okay, so there. And I'm not going to add anything on this narrow space because it's very narrow. But if you want, you can add a single line there. But if you look at it, it's too much already. So I like to leave it as is, basically. Okay, and for the letter F, what shall we do with the letter F? Okay, I'm gonna go back again to my old design. Oh, okay. I found something. No, not yet. Let's go.
I love seeing the thought process live.
Yeah, it's always weird because you think you got it all ready and then you did not. No, this one is cool. Let's try this one. But the letter is going to be a little empty. Let's see how we can work that out and make it a bit bigger. So for that, I'm going to use a single dot here. And then I'm going to draw more like a triangle. Like that. Sorry, I hope you can see it. Okay. And at the bottom part, I will draw the same. It's like an elongated triangle. And then you kind of just cut it right there at the bottom. For this one at the top. And there. You have a new design already. For this one, it looks more sharp. If you look at it, it looks very sharp. So I would probably use this for some particular composition that requires something that is sharp and strong character. So I don't use this a lot. But I like to have many different styles ready. Okay. So for the letter T, sometimes I like to go in, just design from the inside of the letter. And then just follow that line. And of course this one as well. And then I will shade it. Sometimes I add embellishments inside this space, but the letter is very small, so I like to keep it just like that. And I can add some lines too. Okay, so another style. Now for the letter letter E, let's think of something else. Maybe what I want to try in here is
While you're drawing, people are asking where you get your inspiration from.
I have a lot of I get a lot of inspiration from almost everything from coasters. So my husband and I like to go on date nights, Friday date nights, and then we will go drinking. And then I will get the coasters of those bars. I will keep them, and I love looking at all of the different letters. And then I also have what do you call that? Vintage, the encyclopedia of vintage teens.
Oh,
I got it
cool.
from Amazon, and I look at the vintage letters because I like to look at them because they're different and they're kind of unique in different ways. Okay, so this one I'm going to draw more like a flower type. I got this one from these. Okay, so I hope
I
you
wish
can
I could
see
just
this.
I wish I could just buy that book.
You know, I did that part, this one. I did that because I was so pissed off. And I do not like to rant basically online. So instead of ranting, I made something that is pretty and I just shared it. And
I love that.
yeah.
Speaking of buying books from for anybody watching, Mye has a really, really, really awesome book that you can get on Amazon. Is it available on your website too, Mye, or just on Amazon?
Just Amazon and Book Depository.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the name of it up on the screen. And guys, I'm not even kidding you. Last year, a lot of you know that I was traveling for 6 months last year. So I was traveling, and it was right around the time that Mai's book came out, and she asked me if I wanted a copy. And the size of my backpack was like just a little bigger than a normal school backpack, you know, like not a very big one. And it was the all I could carry for 6 months in that little backpack. But when Maya asked me if I wanted a copy of her book, I made room in my backpack to carry that book around because it was so good. So I'm not exaggerating when I say that it's a great book. So if you guys want to go find that, you should definitely do it. It's way worth it.
Yeah, thank you. So here, this is what I got from that inspiration. And often I also get inspiration simply from walking around. Like I don't have the sketchbook right now because it's already been packed. But I saw a log when I was walking with my children. And then when I came back, I just created some wood lettering. And then there was a time that I was browsing on Instagram and I saw a knitter on Instagram. Her name is Lauren Ashton, I think. And I designed letters that are like strings. So they're very thin monolines, but they're stringy. And I just kind of like played with the letters just like that. Because I don't like, there are so many things that each and every letterers are doing. And I like mine to be different at the very least. So I try to find inspiration on very unconventional places. So this one, you can either leave it as is or add an extra line here just to balance everything out. Okay. There. What else can we do with our letter R? Let me just scroll in here quickly. So you see, it's not all in the head. Okay. For this one, I probably will break the letter R in here. Okay, I'll keep it simple. I'll keep this one simple. Really? Okay, so I'll just do this. I'll do another one. If I do this too much. Okay. So what I would probably do here is I'll darken this part and then I'm going to add stippling. Oh my god, the dreaded stippling. The stippling is something that when you add, it looks really, really cool. But when you're already doing it, it's like, why did I ever decided to do it? That's the experience that you get when you're doing stippling. So it's pretty when it's done, but when you're doing it, it's really.
I remember in university we had an art course where we had to do a whole portrait of a celebrity just with stippling.
Oh my god.
So I don't think I'll ever do it again.
Oh my god, that's dreadful.
Yeah.
But I love it when it's in ink and it looks really pretty, but really time consuming. So I don't know how people do it.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot. And I have had a student in Tokyo when I conducted workshops. She flew in from Belgium, I think. And she does stippling illustrations. And that's why she wanted to learn lettering. And she said she's going to try lettering using stippling. Hopefully she was able to do it. I haven't seen her.
I'm sure it would be beautiful.
Yeah. So this is kind of simpler. But I like different variations in my letters. Because I'm someone who really, really just want to be happy all the time. I hate things like drama. I hate politics. I hate. So for me, everything that evokes happiness and fun is more of like what I will do. It's like I have been through a lot and I don't want to deal with so many things anymore. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And my thought process is always, if this is something that I will not benefit from, not simply because I wanted to gain something from it, it's more like something that will not really help me, like mentally, spiritually, physically. It's not something that I would waste my time doing. Okay, so there, this looks like a fish now.
I love it.
Okay, so these are the different embellishings that I like to use. Not everybody, not everything is here. Like for slab, I also have different things that I use for slab serifs. So this is my example for slab. It's more like I have this. This is the thing that I was telling you about. For the bottom part, I have to interchange the styles of the letter. Like this one is fully inked. This one as well. And in the middle, it's also fully inked. But I have to at least give variations so that the eyes will move around the composition. And towards the bottom part, this is going to look like a little empty because these are already all black, and this one is black with stippling, and this one is also black. So I wanted to make this one still look heavy at the bottom, so I had the ink at the bottom and then the decoration at the top. Okay.
So pretty. I love it.
Okay. And this one, I did this last year on my 40th birthday. So I had my friends came over and I was already doing it. And when they came and I was finished with the 40, I think, and all of these things. But they've been there for like 2 hours already and they thought I was already done. And I said, not yet. I still have to add stars and all these dots around here because it still feels empty to me. So this is everything that starts with the word 40 or ends with the word 40. So life begins at 40, for fantastic, 40licious, something like that.
I love it. So
Okay.
good.
Never mind my illustration. So like this one, this is the Sakura illustration hand lettering. It's of course in Japan, and for Japan, everything has kind of a lot more pointy letters and strong and soft at the same time. So I wanted to play with that in this particular design. Okay, so after embellishing, what I like to add are shadows. Okay, so if are you still up for shadows?
Yeah, of course.
So
I get a lot of
for
questions about how to do that, so I would
okay
love for you to show it.
okay, for shadows, the key is knowing where your light source is, and the shadow is always casted on the opposite side of where the light is. So like for example, my favorite shadows are casted on the bottom right because most of my reference the light are on the top left. So if your light source is here, look at my hand. It's going to cast shadow on the other side of the letter. But I have different shadows that I've been using. Like for this one, I have inline there. So I would like to use something that is more angular. And for that design, I like to use the ruler and the triangle so that I have those consistency. But you've just got to have a lot more patience in doing this. So when I'm doing that very tiny shadows like that, and you'll see I'm not doing it from that top, I'm doing it from the bottom, and I slowly gradually will go up there. Oops. So with this style, you just have to be patient. But this is how I would do it. Okay, I'll just make it a little quicker because I already am used to doing this, so I can already spot the angles. But if you're new to it, you can always go and use the triangle and the ruler. I like this kind of shadow because it breaks the style of the inline and it gives more depth to the letter. And this is why I'm doing the shadow from the bottom to the top. Because if I start from the top, I won't be able to see how the angles. Okay, so there. So it kind of separates this style and it adds more depth to the letter. For this one, we're going to try the shadow. because the letter is empty inside. So we're going to fill the shadow for the letter A. If I'm speaking too fast, please let me know.
No, of course, go keep going.
My husband has to tell me to breathe and slow down. Okay, so this is how I do my shadow angles. Okay, so for those horizontal lines, you'll just have to follow those lines and the lines of your letters. We're going to. This is why I use this eraser for very small spaces like this one.
And that's Tombow, right?
Yes, this is a Tombow elastomer eraser. I don't know what the size is though. I think 2.3 mm. Okay. So I'm just going to add oops. Okay, so once you have this, it looks like a dimensional letter or a block letter. Not black letter. Block. So this one will have the shadow here. Still, the light source is on the top left. Okay, so what if my shadow, my light source is in the bottom right? If your light source is in the bottom right, your shadow will of course be casted on the opposite of the bottom right, which is the top left. So let's try this one for the letter P, but I'm not going to do a whole full shadow. I'm going to just add some drop lines. Okay. Top left. Okay, so including the inline. Oops. There. Okay. So if your light source is on the top right, your drop shadow is going to be on the bottom left. So let's try that for the letter P. Because the letter is white inside and it looks empty like the letter A, I'm going to add a full shadow on that as well. So for this one, this is why I like the triangle. It's very helpful when I'm measuring my shadows, and it keeps the consistency of the angles. Okay, so with shadowing, curved letters are always challenging. So what I like to do is just get to the edge of the curved letter. Same with this one. This is the inner part of the P. I'll just get a point there, and then I will just connect it. Okay. So there. Okay. Now for the letter Y, I will just do a simple, probably inline as well, but referencing my shadow from a light source from the upper left again. Okay, there. Now for these bifurcated serifs, they are always very difficult to shadow because of these split. So what I like to do for those letters, can you still see this?
Yep.
Okay. So for these letters, what I like to do is just, I'm going to do the letter R. Just get on the edge of the curves. Also this part. And that end there. And then of course, all the corners of your letters. This part will not have a shadow, very tiny maybe. If you see, with using triangle, you can see which part of the letters will not have shadows anymore. So like for this one, this is going to have, but very, very tiny shadow. So this one here. And then that part. And this part of the leg will have a shadow starting from this part. And just the bow of the R, of course. Okay, so these parts are always the most difficult to shadow. So what I like to do is, when you have your angles ready, just follow the lines of your letters. So like this one is going to have a shadow here. Before I used to shadow it like everything at the bottom will have shadow. It's not like that. You have to follow the shape of the letters. Like, okay. Okay. So if you look at it, it's not just a black shadow at the bottom part of the split of the bifurcated serif. You will see that even the shadows are splitting into two as well. So for curves, you might just want to refine the curves a bit. Okay. And erase the extra strokes. Okay. And then let's work on this part. Same here. Now for this one, where do you connect it? You connect it simply on that space. My stomach is making a weird sound like, oh.
It's telling you that it's almost bedtime.
Is it?
Yeah. I usually go to bed at like 9:30, so you're way past my bedtime right now.
But this is fun. So like this one, we're just going to have to follow the stroke. So don't forget that. Pay attention to your strokes. For now, we're going to just ignore the fact that there's a letter A there. I just want to show you how to shadow this complicated letter. Okay. So like the R has that curve there, so we need to make a nice curve as well. So you see, even if I drew the angles, I still have to follow the shape of the stroke. And that's how you would do it on a serif. Okay. I hope you learned something today.
So awesome, Mai. Thank you so much.
Wow.
You're
I
gonna have
finished
to
it.
you're gonna have to send me a picture of that final product.
This one, if you want, I can digitize it for you, or maybe I can trace it in the iPad and then send it to you.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So a couple people actually, speaking of digitizing, I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
want to put the camera back on your face just because we'll chat now.
Okay.
Um, Someone asked how you digitize your lettering. So is it a certain program you use? And you don't have to get super specific because I know that it can be kind of a big question, but what's your basic process for digitizing?
For digitizing, I like to use Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, and Photoshop. So first, I will clean it up in Photoshop, and then I will. Oh my God, low battery. And then I will digitize mainly in Illustrator. So that's how I would do it because
Okay.
it's very difficult to manipulate all of the strokes in Photoshop, and I like to do that in Illustrator, even though I'm not using the pen tool. For Illustrator, I still want to preserve that human touch in there. So I don't like it to be more precise. So I don't use the pen tool. So I like what I want is the image trace, and then I manipulate the what do you call that, the path,
Hmm.
just to reduce the path a bit so that it's not too perfect and make it more like raw and still have that human touch to it. So that's what I want. And then that is also where I color. So if you notice, I have not colored. This is the letters that I did this year, coloring the alphabet because I have not done any lettering with colors. Traditionally, I always color in Adobe Illustrator because then I can redo everything. If I don't like a particular colorway or color combination, I can just redo it, and I like to do that. And because I can see all the entire picture. So like maybe this one, you thought this is the only colorway that I did for that. No, I have about a couple of color combination that I have to pull, so just so that I can arrive at the piece that I really really like.
Gotcha.
So that's how I do it.
So for the person who asked about digitizing too, it sounded like the person who asked has never done any digitizing. So I have a blog post on my website that's actually like 3 years old, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
very, very basic introduction on how to digitize. So if anybody's looking for that, you can find it on my blog. And I think there are lots of people who have good blog posts on how to do that step-by-step things too. So
Yep.
it can be tricky, but the very basics of it are usually pretty simple if you're just doing like a black and white, trying to
Mm-hmm.
digitize a word or
If it's
something.
just a black and white thing, you can do it in Photoshop. There's a very very short cut to it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just blog about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So a couple people asked the same question when you were doing the shadows on your lettering, and they said, is there a rule for doing different shadow angle variations? Like they never thought about changing up the angle of the shadows in the same piece. Were you just doing that to show it for the example here, or do you sometimes do that all different angles in the same piece?
I do that sometimes in the same piece. So you see, I forgot the letter P. I was just looking at you, and I was looking at the letter, and I forgot something on the letter P. And I do that mostly in some of my pieces. I like to play with the shadows, especially if I'm doing kind of different letter styles. So with different letter styles, I like to break the rules and not follow the entire shadow thing with it because the letters are different anyway. So I might as well just play around with the shadows too. So that's how I would do it.
Love
And
it.
yeah, it's just fun.
I would imagine, like, if you're doing a piece where you're embellishing all of the letters the exact same way, you wouldn't want to have a different shadow on one than the other. Like, if they're all decorated the exact same way, you're not going to put different shadows going in all different directions because it would look weird. But if you have them all different, it looks normal if they're all completely different.
Yes, if it yes, that's
Cool.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have put a note up on the screen for people to ask questions, but in the meantime, what is coming up in your world? Like where can we find you? What are you up to? What can we expect from you next? On top of me sending people to get your book because they need your book.
So what's next is I'm going to have an online course, and it's going to be almost complete. It's almost complete now, and I'm going to be announcing it very very soon, so people can learn how to, not just how to hand letter, but how to turn and make a living from their hand lettering. So the entire business around it, and how to get clients, how do you teach, how do you sell your products, all these kinds of licensing issues, how to legalize your business, and all of those things. So everything that I have learned over the last couple of years, I put that all in that particular course, and I just want to share it with everybody. So that course doesn't have any secrets to it. Everything is there.
You spilled your mind into it.
Yes, everything, just everything.
So it's not available yet, but where can people like be on the waiting list or whatever, however you do that?
Oh, there's a wait list in my website. So if you go to myedeleon.com, at the bottom part, there's a wait list for a lettering masterclass that's coming soon. You can sign up from there, and you can also sign up just to download the free course, and I'll send also the notification to all of my newsletter subscribers.
So anybody who's watching right now should really have already gone and gotten that freebie on your website. So again, just to reiterate, right on the main page of Mye's website, it says get the free course. You can go and get that. There. And then once you have gotten the free course, I mean, as if that's not enough already, she'll let you know about the bigger course that's coming later on. So make sure you've done that. And just as we were talking, we had a question roll in. Someone asked, do you find that your courses are the biggest source of your revenue, or do you do in-person courses, or is it the book, or where does most of your income as a letterer come from?
For now, client work.
Yeah.
Yes, because during the time that I was working with just me and my little boy, I have learned early on that clients, if they really wanted to work with you like you, they would be willing to pay premium price because it's you who's doing the job. It's not just about the lettering work. It's about who's doing the lettering work. So it's kind of like the branding that you are setting in. And I have learned that early on. Luckily for me, my limitations and my constraints became my leverage and kind of my learning point. So that's how it went for me. And I was very thankful that despite all of my challenges, the clients still trusted to work with me. And they were able to pay me good rates for my lettering services. And that's how people should do it too. Because if you keep on getting, what do you call, lowballing yourself, you will just attract clients who would pay you low. So if you have set early on a price that is good for yourself, then you are attracting the same client. Because think about it, when we have something to buy and it's cheap, our initial impression is that the quality isn't good.
You don't value it.
Yeah. Yes, you don't value it. And it's the same thing for hand lettering services, for lettering artists. So if you don't set a price that is, the same value as what you provide to your clients, they're not going to take you seriously for that. And what I have observed are the clients who doesn't pay well are the most difficult clients to deal with. Mm-hmm. They are. So
they try and squeeze as much work out of that like low dollar amount as they can.
Yes,
and they don't appreciate it. Yeah.
While those who pay premium, they have more appreciation for the kind of work and value that you provide for their company.
Yeah. Yeah. And this stuff is all top of mind for me right now because I think I had showed you a long time ago that Joanne and I wrote a panic-free pricing guide. We wrote all about how to price your work and how to not undercut the industry and all that kind of stuff. So we're working on kind of revamping that so that all of that has been so top of mind right now, just thinking about how to not undercut other people, how to value your work and all that kind of stuff. So, and I see some people echoing what we're saying in the comments right now. So people definitely resonate with that. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So anyway, Mye, I know it's like past midnight for you right now. So I think we should, is it? It is, right?
It is. It's okay if they have questions. It's okay. It's definitely
so crazy. Well, we've gone even over time. You've done more than enough. So I will let you go to bed. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much too for inviting me here.
And thank you. Thank you.
To chat with you because I missed you when you came here.
Yeah. We'll have to meet up. But I think everybody's gonna love this, and I hope that everybody gets your freebie because it is so good. I tried to, just so everybody knows, I was trying to print it off before this so I could show you how good it is just on video, but my printer was broken, of course. Yes. So anyway, okay, enough of that. Mye, thank you so much again for being here, and I'll talk to you later.
You too. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.